What's your amendment?
It says we had adjourned to deliberate, but it does not mention anything about us voting at the same time. Which we did.
Did you talk up, Stephen?
I said, in the minutes of the meeting in April, it mentioned that we, excused the public for us to deliberate, but we did not include in the minutes that we also voted.
On April the 13th?
Yes.
So the minutes of voting is at the very last page. James Dunn made the motion to uphold the classification of districts, 43 seconds. And each one of the members were polled, and your vote is 5-8.
Right, what I was talking about was in here, it says we excuse the public to deliberate. But it didn't include that we also voted at the same time.
You want to have it moved from the end of the,
I just wanted to include that. We excuse the public to deliberate and to hold a vote. Very easy, very simple. Exactly what we did.
So you wanted to state that the public was removed so that you all could vote?
We could deliberate and vote. That's what happened. Just include that.
If you would look in the third page, where it states, Gerald Short stated the city of Grady, hired a cash clock, had a conversation about the deliberations not being in front of the audience, asked the jury to not deliberate in public. This meeting would be the same way for the entire city.
Correct. But it doesn't mention anything about us voting. I understand we're deliberating in private. I guess that's just like in regular court, but we also didn't bring everybody back in that was still here for us to vote per the Open Meetings Act that we're trying to pass in the bylaws today.
Courtney, you want to, put in deliberation?
So. Do we have a second for that? I'm a little confused, I think.
do we get a second on the March meeting? Minutes?
The April.
But we were doing March first, right? March comes before April.
I think we were doing them all inclusively, and he asked to make an amendment to the April.
Okay. I don't see the need.
Well, it's a violation of the Open Meetings Act, so it should be included in there. That we're trying to pass in our bylaws that's here in front of us that states that we would follow the Open Meeting Act, so it should be included there.
Transparency, is that what you're trying to ask?
That's it.
Transparency.
That's all it is. Just simple. Ain't causing a problem, just simple.
Courtney said he wants to add a statement that states that, Mr. Waters, you're stating that you want a statement to say that, the Animal Control Advisory Board was voting privately.
We just broke to deliberate and to vote.
And to vote at the same time?
Yes, that's it. It's very
So
simple.
vote to deliberate.
To deliberate
And vote.
And vote.
Alright,
Just 2 words, and vote.
alright.
So then we can make a motion online. We can make a motion online, where you want. I'm fine with that, I'll second that.
Yeah. I'm okay with that.
We can do that.
But technically, we weren't doing against proposed bylaws haven't been voted on yet.
That's
With Opens Meeting Act, it's affecting the whole state of Georgia.
I think it's just a
Any board.
transparency problem.
I hear that. I've
Vote
never
right
seen
now
that
for that.
I can provide it next week.
Yeah, okay. Do that
So we
first.
can vote with the amendment.
Yeah, I think we can vote for the amendment now, right? We can take in a vote for the amendment right now.
I need him to repeat his statement that he wants to put in the minutes.
I just
Exactly as-
like the wording changed to we excuse the public to deliberate and vote.
We excuse the public to deliberate and vote.
Yeah,
Okay.
Just those two words, adding.
Do we have a second for that?
Second.
It's recorded.
Vote on it?
Need the other minutes, Courtney.
Yeah, any other amendments to February through April?
No.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moving on to the proposed bylaws.
Yes. So everyone should have a copy of the proposed bylaws. To my understanding, they were at one time a discussion piece and it was tabled. So at this time, we want to bring the bylaws in question back up again and form a subcommittee to review and provide a bylaw proposal to the board.
Anybody interested in?
Can you just repeat that? I'm so sorry.
Sorry, she wants you to repeat it, she didn't hear you.
Okay, so the proposal here is to, because the bylaws as proposed were tabled, we're asking that the bylaws be, considered again by forming a subcommittee to go over the way they're written. If any changes need to be made, then that subcommittee will be able to bring that back to the board for approval, to go to the clerk for review. Clerk of council.
When were these originally drafted?
Now that I don't know, do you have an idea?
Yes, we did. They were drafted, they were voted on, but because they were not passed, the city attorney wanted us to bring them back before the new board because they also wanted us to add in the dog classifications as well as she will have to go in and approve everything else. So they wanted us to bring it back before the new board. and-
So they were voted on, but the board that voted did not approve them.
They did. The only person that did not approve it was the city attorney.
But the city attorney is good with what we have now.
No, she wanted us, her advisement was to bring it back to the new board now, and to go ahead and look at it, add dog classifications to it as well, and for you all to look at anything else that you may want to amend in it.
So what's their recommendation for the language regarding dog classification?
The language that's in the ordinance now, just that you all vote on it in this law before you all.
But pretty much all this is already in the ordinance, right?
No, that's not the ordinance.
Next to before.
Because the ordinance did not have bylaws.
I
This
thought
is
so.
the bylaws
Okay, it's the next one, correct.
boards are working on that. You all will get
Just
by.
never got pulled. But governed by the ordinance, because the ordinance sets it in stone, right? They will just add that to it, is that what?
So those bylaws will be voted on by the board and will govern this board.
I think the ordinance as it stands is not as detailed as.
I get that, so I'm
Yeah.
saying, we're just
And-
adding,
and-
adding stuff.
Yeah.
Can y'all speak
And
up,
if there's
please?
any-
I was not wrong.
Yeah, no, and if there's any amendments that we want, the subcommittee wants to make, then we need to create that language and then, bring it back to the board next time for approval and then to the city clerk.
The city attorney.
Or city attorney, sorry.
Because there was one that was in there for neither the, voting on the chairperson yearly, you wanted
Yes,
to change
wanted
that
to make
to
it.
bi-yearly. That was one, that was just one of those, and she brought that up in the last meeting.
In the ordinance, it is by year.
Sabine Jean Kennedy.
The chairman, it says 2 consecutive.
Speak up.
But
Yes.
in there, it says yearly, it says every February to vote and have a new chairperson.
So that would be an example of something that
That's
would
an
need to be
example
changed.
of
That
what
needs
needs
to
to
be
be
changed.
amended, that's why she wants a committee, so that you all can look at anything in there that you would like amended, and that committee bring back to the board.
Do we have any volunteers?
I'll volunteer.
Robbie, okay.
I'll do it.
Raymond, Shannon,
I will also.
Sabine will do it.
What?
so I
See how
have
that works?
Anita, I
You mean
have
raise your
Courtney
hand?
would love to.
Shannon,
You're just trying to volunteer the whole board.
Raymond, Shannon, Nita.
Get it all done at once, let's do it.
Is it, so it's gonna be Raymond, Shannon, and Kenita? Is there anyone else? Okay, I think that'll be great. And what I'll do is I will get with, Raymond and Shannon afterwards to set up some time that's convenient for everyone.
Okay.
Where we can come together and discuss,
Sounds
okay?
like a plan? Absolutely, perfect.
Well, moving on to item number 4, we have, board members, questions. Stephen?
Okay, let me start this one off exactly the way I was instructed by the clerk of council to say. For the record, I have officially changed my vote from vicious to non-vicious on the prior case with Cowboy and the murders.
I'm sorry, I may be the only one that's deaf at this table, but could everybody please speak up?
It's the air too.
Well,
Oh, yeah, let's turn off the air
Please
conditioning.
do. Make it a short meeting.
I'll just leave rather
Can we
than
take a vote on that?
I'll be done real quick here in just a second.
I agree.
Yes.
You shake the tables next time.
It's been
everybody can see
suggested
and hear.
before.
That's it.
Yeah, it's hard, in this format, it's hard to hear everybody across the.
So, but what I was saying was I changed my vote from vicious to non-vicious, and I was instructed to explain why. I was one of the few people who saw the entire video. I worked off of common sense. The video showed me there was a lack of common sense. I can't say the dog was vicious, not in good faith. Everyone else is fine with doing it, that's fine. I'm not trying to change nobody's vote, I'm not trying to debate with nobody. It's just, when I go to sleep at night, I gotta lay my head down and live with my conscience, nobody else does, so. For the record, I have changed my vote on that. So, I wanted to get that out of the way first. Then I wanted to ask some questions, because like everybody is, we're concerned with the amount of uptake in dogs being killed at animal control. And I know Kenetta come from a business world. I know she worked in Flow. My wife used to work in Flow. I know has to be an acceptable number. This is acceptable to us. If y'all tell me there's an acceptable number, I'll never mention it again. I'm just wondering, what's that number? Is 25 a month acceptable? Is 30 a month acceptable? Is 100 a month acceptable? I mean, every day I'm getting people emailing me, tagging me in Facebook, sending Facebook posts. These dogs died today. These poor dogs died today. And I always got their pictures there so you can see them. I don't need to see that. It's just kind of like it's rubbing it in. I know y'all do it for transparency, y'all. This dog was in this run, this dog was euthanized. It's a matter of bookkeeping, I understand that. But I just wonder what that acceptable number is.
I think the number is, there's no thinking, the number is based on the amount of space that we have available. That shelter only has 52 runs in the entire building, period.
Yeah, and
Hold on, so when we take in 29 dogs in one day, and we're already full before those dogs get in, we have to make adjustments accordingly. The state has already come in, gave us a violation for using crates. We cannot use crates as a temporary holding location for animals. So the acceptable number, if you want a definitive number, is one that we can't give. It is solely based on space. It's based on when we put our appeals, and the different directors and the different rescues come forward and they take 6 and 7 and 8 animals from us. We are relieved Because
I
don't get
honestly
it
believe,
mistaken, we don't want to euthanize, we don't like to euthanize.
I honestly believe that number would be 0 for y'all. If y'all could do it, it'd be 0.
It would be.
It
I
would-
think that's what everybody strives for.
It
Yeah,
would
that's-
never happen.
And we are so appreciative, I don't think you even know the relief that comes over staff when we see our rescue partners coming through that door, taking animals, because we don't have to go into that room and do that.
Oh, it blows my mind when I walk in and I see that Sabine is taking animals in, and I walk in her place and I go, where in the world you put them at?
Exactly. So
I mean,
everyone, I
she
think,
invents a place, so.
yeah, I think it is a fair statement to say that everyone, every rescue in the state of Georgia, and let me just even narrow it down to that. I was thinking, I'm looking at my other rescue partners here. They're all limited to how many animals they can take. It is not an unending number.
Oh, I understand.
So to ask what is our limit or our number, we can't give you a definitive number.
Can we just clear one, I get this question a lot,
Okay.
a whole lot. If we can just clear this up right now, it'd be easy for me to do. What is the reason why we can't close the doors, separate the stalls for 1 night, 2 nights? I'm not talking about forever.
Mhm.
I mean, if you got 40 dogs and 40 runs and you get 5 more in, what's the harm in closing 5 of those things and putting 5 dogs on the other side just for the night, just to see if Sabine has 15 people come in and adopt dogs today from her, that she may be able to take those 5 tomorrow. Or Paul's may be able to take those 5 tomorrow. I mean, what is the harm in, I know during the wintertime, Katrina and I had a great conversation about this. One side's heated, one side's not. Don't make sense to do it that way. Because the dog on the cold side's gonna be cold. And I understand it completely during the winter, but right now the weather is just perfect. Would it be that much of a drag and a burden on animal control? 'Cause I know then it's gonna require 2 people to clean that run.
That's correct.
One person to walk the dog, one person to clean the run. Instead of putting them on one side, doing one side, flipping them around and doing that side. I mean, what is the biggest drawback on that? If we can answer that and get this over with now, then I can tell people, hey, it's been answered. Done with it.
So one is safety, as a facility that also has,
Guillotine
yeah.
door.
We've had dogs when we're in the middle of cleaning where we've had it, the run shut down and they're able to
Push through the door.
push through the door. If they want through, they can. If you have 2 dogs that are not dog friendly on the other side, they
That
could
would
come
be a good
in.
thing.
No, it would not be a good thing to come into. So I know that is I'm sorry if I'm speaking
No,
out
no,
of turn.
you're
but
fine. I'm just
I
gonna
know
add to
that
it.
that would be a concern.
I'm sure y'all, little dogs y'all put together and then
If they
instead of
come
one
in-
little dog having to run by
If they
itself.
come in as a pack, meaning 2 or 3 of them running together, and they're getting along fine, those 3 go in one run. We
So,
don't separate them.
I would assume that mama dog and those 3 puppies that we
They all
brought
go
in
in
that time
one
all went
run.
together.
We don't separate them, yeah. The other issue, Courtney was absolutely right when it comes to the guillotine door. And Kenita, don't let me open up and shadow you, but the other issue is staffing.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, the only person there to clean is someone that I pulled from another division, another slot, and put in there because I had no one to clean it because we don't have inmates anymore.
Mm.
So when we were short-staffed, meaning we were so short, we couldn't put anyone on, I think we only had 1 person on the street. We try not to put 1 person on the street because they have to have some form of backup. They would come in first and they would do cleaning. Now that we're to a point where we can have 1 in the north, 1 in the south, and hopefully 1 citywide, there's no one in there to assist that 1 person that I have cleaning. We have the CBI kids coming in at one point, but they don't, do they handle they don't handle the animals, right?
Yeah.
They just, so we have to move the animals in order for them to clean. So staffing is another issue that we are plagued with, but I will say that the gentleman that is there now doesn't wanna go back to his old division. But the division wants their slot.
I mean,
That's a whole nother issue.
We got 50 friends there, so I can understand that right there.
One other consideration is, if you have 40 dogs, maybe 5 or 6 of them are scared to death.
Oh, yeah.
And if they don't have a way to go back, a lot of times when I go out there with biscuits, I wanna feed them a biscuit, they're so scared of me, they'll go to the back end of the run. If you have it closed off, they won't have that, and it'll just leave them more traumatized.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking
I'm just-
about
I'm just
a
saying.
temporary, not a permanent fix. It can't be a permanent fix, because you can't expect animal control to go from 40 to 80. I mean, just, it's impossible, you can't do that overnight. I mean, y'all's budget's just like ours, we just got through doing our budget, so we're tasked. We'll hire as many people who come in and get hired, I mean, pretty much we're hiring breathing bodies right now, so. But,
And it's unfortunate, but I think this time of year, people are very lax with the control of their animals, so there's more out there running. And I'm just grateful that we've done we've got some good officers out there now that are fortunately and unfortunately bringing them in by the truckloads, which is what we want, but, for public safety purposes, but it outgrows what we have space for.
I was happy I stopped at Burger King, the train station over there, and got breakfast this morning. I was happy to see several animal control trucks behind each other going past them all. I said, wow, I actually see them out on the road now. Which, I mean, like when Lieutenant Sick and I went out, that man had more calls than he knew what to do with.
Also, Stephen, all the shelters are governed by the Department of Agriculture, and they put upon us how many animals we can have. And when they come in for an inspection, they count, I have to run them a report. They wanna know how many animals we have in the shelter.
Kanita, you
And
should
we
share the
cannot go
Gwinnett
above-
situation, the statistics.
So yes, Robbie came in earlier
It
today,
is.
We are too.
and I had to share with him, Gwinnett County, I didn't check, but as of today, they were supposed to open it back up because they'd been shut down for 2.5 weeks because of overcrowdedness, they had too many animals. And one of the things that we don't want to happen here, because we are the only, municipality animal shelter, is for us to close down.
How
We have to
many,
be
how many
open.
over were they?
I think 100 dogs.
Yeah.
Wow. So the
140.
USDA regulates off of dogs,
Department.
not.
Department of
Department of
Agriculture, the
Agriculture.
state of Georgia regulates that.
Right, just Department of
Right,
Agriculture.
yeah.
But
So-
they regulate off of number of dogs and not space for dogs.
They regulate based on the size of your facility and how many runs
And how many
You
employees
have.
you have.
and how many they will allow at one given time.
You cannot have 50 dogs with just one staff member.
And
So
staff-
everything
and
has,
staff.
everything has to be
And staff.
coordinated, you know?
There's a
Fifty dogs
capacity
in the
for
backyard.
two.
What are you talking about?
It's not your house, Shannon.
Well,
So-
I'm learning, so I'm asking.
Right,
I
so-
just wanted to learn.
Can I intervene on
Yeah.
that real quick, Stephen? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but, with the last meeting that we had with the general public was the citizens growing and the cities growing, et cetera. Wouldn't that mean that the shelter would have to grow with the amount of people that are coming in with the growing city and citizens? That means more animals involved. Wouldn't the facility have to grow with it?
That's a good point.
Well, I spoke with a council member yesterday and was politely told that they have no desire to increase the size of animal control or to increase the size of staff. So that was a new,
Or staff.
that was
Speak up,
a,
Stephen.
that was a new, for our staff. So that was a complete shutdown when I was talking with them yesterday, and I said, well, that's that then. I mean, ain't no hope, not for that. The only thing we can do now is try to help control the public with their animals.
And I think that's the answer.
And I really wish I could push requiring microchipping of every animal leaves animal control. Whether Paws gets an animal, Animal Art gets an animal, if it leaves, it gets registered to Animal Art. If Animal Art wants to adopt it somebody, they're responsible for changing the system. If that dog's running around, ain't never been changed, then Animal Art gets the ticket.
All our.
If you adopt a dog out to me, you go into the computer, tap, 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 Steve Waters has this dog now, and now it's mine, it's registered to me,
That's
so
what's being
if the
done.
dog gets loose, I should get a ticket for it, whether I live in California or live in Columbus, Georgia, there should be a ticket issued to me. I live in California, I get pulled over for a tail light out, you got a warrant for your arrest in Columbus, Georgia, because you let your dog. It's an easy way, I mean, they have to have city permit, they have to have rabies shot. Every dog should be microchipped. Required.
Let me say this, and Pete, I don't mean to cut you off, but in regards to expanding animal control, I am by no means trying to speak for the council or as a council, but I will say this. When, and when I first came to Animal Control, 25 years ago,
Wow.
2000 to be exact,
You was from Saratoga.
Sarasota, yes.
Yes.
The push at that time was for a public-private partnership to build a larger facility than what we had, and Sabine was in the old Humane Society, which was across the street from us, but the old animal shelter, which was, heartbreaking, to say the least. So that public-private partnership raised the money that was used to create what we have today. I do not believe in my heart of hearts that if another group came together and said, we want to form a public-private partnership to build, maybe we need to think about a different type of facility, not necessarily a animal shelter, but a different type of facility. I'm not even gonna try and go there, but that there's a partnership involved in which a capital campaign would be implemented, in which this facility would be birthed from. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I don't think there's a council in the world that would not listen to that.
Right.
But if you're asking the city of Columbus, who, has challenges every day, right? To cough up $3, $4, $5 million to build an additional shelter, I can understand the response that you receive. Make sense?
Well, you know, I made a suggestion before, and I work a lot with the school district on things like this right here. We've been trying to give away the old Spencer. We told Fort Benning you can have it. Fort Benning told us, no, we don't want it.
That's the first I've ever heard of
But
that.
that has a football field that's fenced in, which would be a great dog park. It has 64 classrooms in there that you could put comfortably 8 dogs in each classroom, which that would require y'all to greatly grow in staff. I mean, it ain't gonna be an easy grow, but I mean, stuff like that, I mean, the school district tries to give stuff away all the time. We
That's
try
the
to give
first that I've ever
children.
heard of that.
I
I've
mean,
never heard.
it's
of
just
anyone
an
trying to
option
do it.
outside the box.
But let me also say this, that's a great thought, but the reality of that is that entire facility would have to be redone
Oh, it's going
to
to be
be
redone.
an animal shelter that meets state requirements. That means drains, that means a whole lot of work. Floors are gonna have to come up, new floors are gonna have to go down. That's expensive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not as expensive as build a building
Yeah.
that size, but.
But that's what I'm saying, a public-private partnership. You know that for a fact, and you've got a group of people who are willing to put in the work and to put in that legwork and present it, you know, I don't know what could happen.
I mean,
But for this, the city is very much in love with public-private partnerships. That's how Paws and the City ended up on the same campus. And there's so many more throughout the city that are established and doing very well, so.
you brought up the old dog pound. That's what we used to call it. I have an off-topic question for you now. Humane Society used to own that property across the street. Who owns that cemetery over there? I got a personal problem with that because I've got 3 spots over there that none of them are taken care of. They're not being cut. The little plastic PVC pipes where the flowers be put in are run over. I've replaced the badges on my dog's gravestones at least 5 times
It's not
because
city
they've been ripped
property,
off.
so.
I
It's
didn't know.
Paul's Humane's property, so if you wanna talk about it after the meeting, we can.
Perfect, thank you. That solved that problem. That was an easy question right there.
All right, good deal.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank y'all.
Stephen, you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Finished, okay. Shannon,
Yes,
you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
So in front of you, you have a statistics report that I did up based on the numbers that was given from animal control itself, just made it a little bit more simplified. The carryover number for 2019 I didn't have, so I couldn't start with that. The end number is where we were. From last year to this year, from 2022 to 2023, the euthanization rate went up 4% in the beginning of the year. As of June, it is now at 6 to 7%. So when I look at the intake numbers, which I do, the return to owner, the adopted, the rescued, and then the euthanization numbers. 2022 had a higher intake rate than 2023, yet the euthanization rate is higher in 2023. Is there a reason?
How do the live outcome numbers compare to,
Well, wait,
2023.
you're asking if there's a reason why the numbers are
Right.
like they are for 2023?
For 2022 to 2023, when the intake was higher in 2022 than 2023. I understand that we're only in June at this moment, so I didn't include that in the numbers.
She's asking why the euthanization rate has jumped.
Right.
Euthanasia or intake? I'm hearing intake. I thought I heard.
Well, the adoptions was
The
higher.
Versus
intake.
intake.
Well, intake, I mean, intake
so
can be
live outcomes were higher last year?
Mhm.
caused by
Gotcha.
different things. It can be caused by the fact that we've got more officers on the streets now, so we're taking in more animals than we were before. People, that wanna unfortunately get rid of their animals are calling us, and we've got appointments set up now for them than we did before, I believe. So there's several reasons why your
Yeah.
intake is up. But you didn't have the carryover for 2018.
I guess okay, so carryover, let's talk about that first.
Okay.
Your first question is, where's the line item to carry over from previous year? And it's my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, we do not carry over anything from the year prior.
Wait, you're talking budget, or you're talking, I think, I was thinking budget.
Not budget, I'm not talking
You're
budget, I'm
talking
talking
about
the
intake.
end, right, the intake
talking
and
about
the
intake.
number.
Year.
Oh, okay,
Correct.
okay,
Animal
okay.
year, so you would have it carryover.
So say as of right now, 2023, the end number is 393 animals in-house. So what happens at the end of the year if you still have that take? Does it carry over to the new year?
Yeah, the animals don't go anywhere.
Okay.
This do,
I wish the state would let us open the doors and say, run free, and let us start back off at zero, but. the state
You're not
doesn't
kidding.
want that,
Be in charge.
so We have to,
Talk
we
that.
still have to take care of them, so yes, they're still there.
Okay, and then the other question, part of that as well, is the breakdown for euthanasia by owner request, health issues, behavior issues, space. So within those euthanized numbers, which one were for owner request, which ones were for health issues, and which one was for behavior?
Now, on the euthanasia report, you will see those that were, euthanized and why. So.
I have a bunch of these.
Yes, you do, you should. I just got. I see better without my glasses on. Isn't that euthanized?
It doesn't have the reads on there.
You know what it says?
Yeah.
So you should have a report in there, I'm just going by memory, guys.
Okay,
It should say like sick,
it does. It says sick, contagious, out of country, out of county rather, sorry, aggressive, and then vet recommendation.
right.
So on the aggressive point of view, how does one get determined that it's aggressive? And I know that you've answered this before, I'm just trying to get it on record.
Okay, so it is their interaction with our staff members? Well, let me start. Let me pull back because it's been asked several times and we don't have a behavioralist. Okay? What we have are our staff members that interact daily with the animals. They write down every day their interactions and what they encounter. And based on that, with the guidance of our Dr. Hall, we determine at that time their level of aggressiveness.
So if they're in a shelter, and I'm gonna use this one as an excuse, and I know I've used her for 1,000,001 excuses that I've had so far, but she's the only one I can go for because I personally own her. Lilith, the German Shepherd. She was deemed aggressive. She was deemed to be put down by Dr. Hall. I ended up taking her out of the shelter environment for 2 minutes, and she was a changed dog. And that's also happened with Oreo, another dog that we last year ended up with. we took her out of the environment. She was aggressive, I have video of it, she was. Staff wouldn't go near her, staff would hide behind the doors, staff wouldn't even go into the room when we were taking her out. We got her out of the environment within, I think we were there for 10 minutes at most, and she was letting us pet her, and 125%, thanks to Animal SOS, who backed me up on 90% of the dogs that I'm crazy for. And they're like, go ahead, foster, and we do. And she ended up being wonderful and now is adopted and doing fantastic in our new home. Lilith, we still own, she's still with us. And she's fantastic. So that's my question, how do they get deemed aggressive by one if you're not taking them out of the environment to show them a different way? And giving them the chance, and if they had a behaviorist, maybe even working with them, or a trainer who's willing to come in for nothing and work with the animals that are deemed aggressive. Because 90% that were deemed aggressive, I own, and they haven't been aggressive. So that's my question, if there was a behaviorist in place, or maybe even just taking them out of the environment for a bit of time, who's to say that that aggressiveness could just go away and they'd be a different dog? It just seems that the euthanization is just the answer for everything.
It's not the answer for everything, it is the answer for a space issue that we do have that we can't control. As far as the behavioralist is concerned, I go back to, we don't have a behavioralist on staff. So we depend on those employees who have been there for years, dealing with animals for years, to include our veterinarian. If he is a medical doctor and he makes a decision, who am I, or who is a staff member to oppose that decision? That's
Right.
number one. If a dog comes in and this animal aggressive, I don't care who's talking to it. If it's another animal, it's a different issue. An animal that is animal aggressive is gonna be animal aggressive, whether it's in a run, in a cage, or whatever.
Right.
It's animal aggressive. And if you notice from our euthanasia list, and Katrina, you all correct me if I'm wrong, we start off looking at animal aggressive animals. And then we go to our longest residence. So if you wanna
That's not
hire a
true.
behavioralist, I have no problem with that. I just need you to fund it.
All right. I do have a trainer, but not a behaviorist.
Well, and let me also say too, though, you know, by the same token, we just have to be mindful that we do have capacity issues. And if it's if we do bring in a behavioralist, and Courtney, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I, for some reason, wanted to remember that you all have a behavioralist on staff. And when we call for that behavioralist, they gladly send her over to work with the animal. But, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and say that, you know, the behavioralist sees a glimpse of hope and we are to our gills, that animal's still not gonna go on the list.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
And I would also love, since you're taking orders, I need someone to run a foster program. If we had someone that would be
Right.
able to run a foster program that can meet the requirements of the state, which Courtney and them have it, but you gotta inspect every household twice a year. If I had a person who could do that, that would help tremendously.
I'd greatly do that. I have no problem going to anybody's home. I don't care
Now,
about
see, now
that.
you're being nosy.
Eddie
It's not
Barker.
about running a home. It's about making sure the animal's environment is conducive for them to have an animal. But, you know, there's a lot more to it, but.
Well, now, the situation with, you said Hank Hall had said Lloyd was aggressive. And we had a long-term resident at Paws that was, labeled, institutionalized.
Yeah, I
That was
believe that.
Sampson.
Yeah.
And so some dogs have a fine
Fine line.
window
Mhm. I
to
agree.
find their home, the perfect, and they
agree.
took him out to, Utah. And he thrived, he just recently passed away, but he thrived the last few years he was around, and it took it's not always possible to find the exact correct home for a dog like that, cause he was aggressive toward men. I couldn't ever go in and play with him.
Wow.
But somehow Hannah's, fiance was able to bridge that gap. But we can't expect every single dog that has a small window like that to be saved, because the situation that unfolded to save him is not available for every dog that's in that situation. That was a rare situation, but still somebody that was highly trained said he was institutional and probably would need to be put down. And just like Hank called, they make mistakes, they're not infallible.
Well, Little Wing.
Well, it
is
also
in-
wasn't wrong. I mean, they weren't wrong. The dog was aggressive. We just
Right.
were able to put him in a sanctuary
Exactly.
situation where he could
Exactly.
live,
Exactly.
but
He
in a
ended up being
controlled
one of the lucky
environment.
ones.
Yeah,
That's
but-
just not,
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
The
my point
situation
is that was a very thin line for him to be saved, and sometimes the line is closed altogether, you know, cause it's
And
not
unfortunately
possible.
for us, our line is constantly, moving.
Yeah.
Based on what's coming in that gate. I
Right.
almost hate to hear the gate open, cause I know when it goes open, there's a truck coming in and there's something on that truck.
Yeah.
Heck, I've been labeled aggressive myself, so.
All right, so moving on to the next question is, what can we do as a community to help bring the numbers down? Obviously, the spay and neuter program is, Animal SOS always gets started and finishes through with, applaud to them. Cause that's a wonderful program that they have available for everybody. The vets, can we get local vets maybe to include where if they don't fall into a certain program, maybe the numbers could, like a discount, I guess, for certain people who don't meet like a stipulation on an income? A spay neuter, no, just spay neuter. Spay neuter only.
TNR program that we
The
do now
TNR
through
program.
them. There's no way I can comment for all the other areas.
Right,
They're all
no,
engaged with their own
exactly.
businesses. I
Right.
can't make any comment.
That's what I mean, like making phone calls and whatnot, and talking to local vets, et cetera, trying to get help with the Animal SOS, I know has like a wonderful program. They work with a lot of the vets, et cetera. So maybe the ones that aren't working with them, maybe we can broaden that to like Phoenix City, Caldwell, things of that nature.
Auburn University,
Auburn University, exactly.
a lot of students, and
Right.
we've discussed that before.
was that?
Trying to get students over here that are vet savvy. I mean, I'm using the wrong terminology.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to be a licensed.
Yeah,
Internships?
yeah, but I mean,
These not internships?
Yeah.
okay, I don't know. But evidently spay and neuter is for them, it's a fairly simple operation. So you would think that, we could get more people working on it. If it's viewed as a big issue, which I think it is.
There's many that cannot do space.
Hmm?
Space is not that simple.
Well, okay, Donna.
No, just saying.
What did you, I didn't even hear what you said, what'd you say?
She's just mumbling again.
Spade is not as easy.
Spain's not easy?
No.
That's
Oh,
neuter.
But you neuter everybody, you won't need to spay too
No,
much.
neuter is easy.
You won't have to spade that all.
The equation, if you cut off one part of the equation, no pun intended, then the other part solves itself. Okay, through.
I think, I mean, yes, I mean, it's worth the phone calls, you know, as he said, they're all individual businesses. And,
Right.
I mean, you know, speaking for Paws, we have a lot of, partner veterinarians. He's one of them that will do special pricing for like our TNR program, but it would be up to the individual if they
Right.
can or not. But yeah, I mean, I think it's something that could be asked.
Okay.
All they can do is say no.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly, right. Well, I'm just thinking because, I mean, Animal SOS, I know for a fact takes on a huge amount
Yeah, they do.
of money in medical cases, et cetera, so to me, it's just like, what's, you know, even if it's a 10% discount, it's
Yeah.
worth it. For instance, I know they're all doing them, but I didn't forget you, Sabine, I promise. Alright, so anyway, when the budget is submitted for review, can certain items be added to the day-to-day operations? Now, this is a question that came from one of the citizens. Taramectin, cotton rounds, the kitten milk replacers, miracle nipples, monthly preventative, to name a few. So those are just certain examples that come through. Is there like a certain budget that you have that those items can be added on a daily basis? So that they're in-house when things like the kittens came in, the neonates came in, and they had nobody there, no milk and whatnot, and that had to be asked of. is that something that could be included in the budget to hold on to on a day-to-day basis?
So we have a certain amount of funding that is, identified in the operating budget that is solely for medical expenses. Those expenses or those, items are purchased on the recommendation of our licensed vet. It is not a staff member that makes a decision that we buy neonate, drugs or, adult drugs. It
Okay.
is solely the veterinarian's directions, it's his license, and that's what we order,
Okay,
okay?
So like in the situation with the kittens, y'all called? Dr.
We
Hall?
call,
Or-
them and everybody else, it's a rescue that can come get young cats, paws and purrs, I think it's one of them, and they'll come and get them. And they will nurse them to us, you know, to health or
Okay,
whatever.
so you totally depend on that, you don't have any.
Right.
Yeah,
Rescue.
but for, you know, for neonates, as you all know, I mean, it takes a lot of TLC and a lot of individualized care. We don't have the staffing to do that, so we highly depend on our rescues to make sure that those animals get to the right hands.
I have a question about that. I have a citizen that called me. She is a 30-year licensed veterinarian technician. She has offered her services completely free to come by and check on cats, specifically cats. She's a cat person. It's fine, I'm a dog person. But she was turned down. Why would we turn down free license
Who is she?
Teresa Elliott?
Oh, wait a minute, is that my Teresa Elliott?
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, no, no. And I'm gonna tell you why she was turned down. Teresa Elliott was a hoarder. She was a hoarder of cats. I dealt with her for.
I got that
many-
feeling.
Hold on, I dealt with her for many years.
Different Elliot.
Oh, okay, then I'm on the wrong one.
Ooh, I was like, wait a minute now, 'cause
Is it the different?
I've had her
Elliott?
surprise
Different.
before.
I'm almost having nightmares again.
You know
Because
the
of when I
reason-
went to Catholic school with her, so that's why I was wondering,
Sweet
she
deprived
reached out
cat.
to me.
Thank you. Short hair, pixie lip.
Oh, okay,
You
so,
know
She's
her.
dealt with both of them though.
But yeah, you're thinking about, or, no, not her.
Okay, not the same.
Not the hoarder.
Okay. Then I'm gonna be quiet and I'm gonna say, we
So-
got her name, we're gonna look her up, we'll let you know.
Okay,
That's
so
the best thing to do.
if
So,
I,
let
if I
me-
speak with
let
her,
me-
can
let
I
me-
ask her to reach back out to y'all?
so let me speak on that. I did speak to Teresa. She came in and sat down and talked to me maybe a few weeks ago, and I shared with her that I would get back with her. So we didn't turn her down, if that's what
Well,
she said.
well, she's under the impression she was.
Well, I
turned
didn't
down.
tell her no at all. I told her that I would get back with her.
I mean, she told me, she, I would come in, I would evaluate them, I would leave notes, so Dr. Hall can come in and read her notes. If she
So-
wants to check over what she did, she can.
So let
Just
me
help
say
them out.
this, specifically, if she wanted to speak back with me, she could, because
Okay.
I gave her that, and that's what I would suggest that you tell her.
Perfect, thank you.
Sorry, Sharon.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Scared me for a minute.
That's safety and question, you're good.
We don't filibuster, we don't filibuster for time.
You're good, that's fine.
Jeannie Elliott.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he was the officer with the truck.
Shannon, I'm sorry,
What's
go
that?
ahead.
No, you're fine, cause now I got hoarding in my head and it's scaring me to death. I don't like
Sorry about
that. So I know you said something about,
University Avenue.
you're looking for somebody to do foster programs, et cetera. Is that something that's in the near future, so that way you're not relying only on rescues, or that's not in the near future?
No, we did put, additional positions in our budget, but they, because of the pay compensation study, because of that whole, component of the budget was done this year, they asked and they told us that they were not gonna entertain any reclassifications or new positions at all this year, so they were taken out.
Okay.
That's citywide, not just animal care and control, that was citywide.
Right.
But there's
Okay.
always next year.
Hopeful thinking.
Speaking of that.
Hopeful thinking.
Speaking of that,
Sorry, Shannon.
Stephen said
No,
that.
you're fine.
Stephen said that, you know, it's too late to get anything changed to the budget, even though we got a copy of it late, we couldn't do any serious advice on it. Next year, my little thing is acoustic ceiling baffles
Mhm.
for the large kennel room. I think that'll do a wonder Now, the problem is, I'm having trouble getting hold of this company to find out exactly how well they work. I wanna do that before there's any thought
Okay.
of expending money. But I think they would make a hell of a big difference in that big room, cause it's so loud.
Okay.
First time I experienced something like that was at East Alabama. Humane Control went in there and I was blasted out with all the barking. As much as I love dogs, I like ice cream too, but I'm not taking a truckload, you know? So the point is, if these work, and I finally sent them an email because I couldn't get through their phone. I said, look, you know, if you have a video that shows it before, or with or without them, I'd love to see it. Or if there's one with your product, kennel somewhere in the region with your product, I'd love to travel and see how it works, to make sure it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, I just wanna make sure Shannon, cause she was
Oh.
on the
Yeah, no,
agenda,
you're fine.
gets
Thank you.
through
Thanks for
what
that.
she wants to
But
ask.
that's part of the questions anyway, was part of
Okay.
that as well, because Courtney had brought that up the last meeting about closing in the spaces, et cetera, for, soundproofing, I believe it was, correct?
Yeah, I brought that up before.
Right, and we voted on it and we approved it, so when does that get implemented? At
No,
what timeframe should
it
be?
wasn't anything voted on, I was asking what we could do as a board, and that, like, I was basically offering my assistance to,
Okay. My mistake.
yeah, see if we can find funding to get that done for them.
Okay,
So
so
it was.
is that something that we can do, move forward with, or helping with the soundproofing for the dogs?
So let me say this, because budget actually came up several times, in my long tenure here. And, and this is what, I guess and please correct me if I'm wrong, Drell and Katrina. This board, is involved in the proposed budget. We have a budget that animal control that has been already assigned to us by the city. The proposed budget is what this board will have or can have the opportunity in being a part of. And so, with that being said, things such as this as you're bringing up, what I would like to do is go ahead and put it out there that if it is something that this board would like to see happen at Animal Care and Control, we start now discussing those things and putting down pretty much a wish list. So when the budget is starting to be, the proposed budget is coming before Drell, because I'll have to create one and send it to her, I can take that wish list and incorporate that into the proposed budget with your help, whatever those things may look like. That doesn't guarantee that they'll be approved, but at least you will have an opportunity to participate in helping me with that proposed budget. But the budget itself, I want everyone to understand and be clear, we already have a budget. The city has already given us whatever that is when it comes to staffing, operational costs, things of that nature. But a proposed budget is what this board has the opportunity to participate with, and I would like for us to start doing something about that now. If there are anything that you would like to be a part of, as far as to see happen at Animal Care and Control, we start making that wish list. So it will be available to me when I have to start the budget season. And the reason why I say that is because I'm only given a 2-week window, if that, to come up with my proposal to give to Drell so that she can take it and do whatever and send it to whoever she needs to. And so I don't have that time frame or that luxury to let you see it before I send it to her. That make sense? So,
We have a city ordinance that says it's supposed to be that way.
no, sir.
5-4, section B says it's supposed to be presented to the Animal Advisory Board before it's sent up the chain.
What it says is the proposed budget.
Yes, the proposed budget.
And what I'm telling you is to allow you that opportunity before I have to send it to Drell, which we're given, that time is dictated by my executive team. For me to give you that opportunity to see it, you need to go ahead and start telling me what your wish list is so that I can let you see it before I send it to Drell. Because once I send it to Drell, it's done,
It's done today.
okay?
First hearing's today.
So with that being said, please keep that in mind, as something that we can start doing now, so that when I am in the preparation phases, you can see it well before, I send it to Drell, because once I send it to her, it has to go through its process.
So the one that we got a copy of, this operational budget that we got a copy of now, we can use that as the basis for next year to work off of? I mean,
It's
what's
the
the?
same,
It's
I
the
know-
same.
it's the same form, but the numbers may be a little
Right,
different based on
I know the
what-
computer software says $50,000 for it. Is that a reoccurring fee each year? Well, I know I pay,
No, they have to research to make sure that that 50,000 is still gonna cover it.
yeah, I know our maintenance fee on the software that I manage is 36,000 every year.
It depends on the,
Yeah,
the
so it's
entity that you're in,
reoccurring
but
cost, right.
I will say this, we had it in both budgets, we had it in the IT budget as well as the animal control budget, and it got kicked out of both.
Wow, y'all really need some new software.
Yeah, we need software, we absolutely do,
Yeah.
and that will go back in the next budget.
Yeah, I saw what y'all had, y'all really
Yeah,
need new
we've been-
software.
We've been asking for software for some years.
That's
It is not an
1995 all over again.
But to answer your question, if you wanna use that as a guide, you can.
Perfect,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Shannon, I'm sorry, we just keep
Oh, no,
interrupting.
you're fine, absolutely fine. So going back to the neonates, if in fact a rescue cannot take, and you end up with neonates in-house, what's the staff policy to come in and feed them? Is there one? Which you've already stated that you didn't have
We
one,
don't have
correct?
the staff for that, we would look at Dr. Hall to give us direction.
Okay. So the next big one is, when an ACO is calling with concerns of an animal in distress / neglect, food deprived, etc., what's the protocol to tell that ACO to leave that animal behind?
So I'm assuming you're saying we get a call at Animal Care and Control,
Correct,
and it is regarding the welfare of an animal,
yes.
okay? And we get out there and the animal is in distress.
Clearly in distress.
So, if the animal is clearly in distress and we see that they are emaciated, we will take the animal. Now, also, there have been situations where we have gone out, specifically since I've been there, and the owner has said, "Don't take my animal." Keep this in mind, animals are considered property. And if a owner says, "Don't take my animal, I'm getting them treated," what we can do within our guidelines is tell them, "Okay, we'll be back in X amount of time and we'll go back." And that's what we'll do, because that is someone's property.
So in Emmy Lou's case, for instance.
I'm
when
sorry,
Emmy Lou, the Great Dane in question.
I'm not familiar with Amy.
Emmy Lou is a Great Dane that was in distress, that the ACO called and clearly stated that the dog was being starved, it was out in the yard 24/7, and he was told to leave that dog there.
What address?
What?
Sabine, do you remember the address? I know you have the dog now.
I only know because I have to go.
What, it was Spruce Street?
Well, I think it's unfair to expect us to know the answer to that question right here. I think if
It's
you
a
give us
great
the
deal.
opportunity to go back and look at the records and see what the situation was for that particular call, we can come back and give you definitive information on that call.
That's perfectly
I think that's
fine.
unfair.
Yeah.
Yep,
Because it's hard, I don't know Amy Lou, or, I don't know, right, Amy Lou?
Emmy Lou.
Amy Lou, I don't know what the situation was, I do know, and I'm not a vet, but for some reason in my memory, I wanna say that we've had cases with Great Danes before in which the person felt that the dog was being starved, but in reality, because of the breed and how their makeup is, it wasn't, or something like that, but that was years ago.
I do know the animal you're talking about, Shannon, and I don't mind having a conversation with you.
yeah, that'd
outside
be
of this.
perfectly fine. Yeah,
Okay.
13 Spruce Street was the
Yes,
address
I
on
know
that one,
exactly
correct?
what
Okay.
Oh,
Very good.
Is Bruce?
Now, the last question that I had was, what training does the staff receive to euthanize animals? Because in the last audit, it stated that one was not trained and was euthanizing in animal control. And has that person now been trained and licensed to euthanize?
Is that Dean?
Yeah, that's the,
Mhm.
that would be, Dr. Hall will be doing her last training this month.
So isn't it a 3 months or is it 6 months? They're not trained?
It depends.
Animal control.
Yeah.
Well, it's all controlled by Dr.
Right,
Hall.
yes.
Dr. Hall determines whether or not certification has been reached for that individual before he will sign off on them and say, you can do euthanasia. In the meantime, they're learning every aspect of euthanasia under the guidance of Sarah, the shelter supervisor.
Mhm.
But they don't partake in euthanasia, meaning they're the ones doing it, unless Dr. Hall is in that room, because he has it certified under his license, that he trained that individual to do it.
But to answer your question about the person, that was not certified, she was not certified, but to my understanding, she wasn't doing, any euthanasia. And her certification will be done by the end of this month.
Okay. Thank you.
But just to be clear, Dr. Hall has to be there for each one, right?
No.
Well,
No.
Not once they're
Yeah,
certified,
it's a
not
lay
once they're
person,
certified.
that's considered a lay person.
Cause he's in Europe right now.
Huh?
He's in Europe right now.
I don't know.
And, Mr. Cooper, I'll
We're
send you a
buds.
copy of the, BDA, what they're certified under, I'll send it to you.
Can we also, explain exactly how the euthanasia is being done? Cause when I look at the social media, there's all sorts of different claims are being made.
It's all being done by
Right.
intravenous, I don't know, I'll need to say it.
Just like IV.
IV, that's it.
It's shot directly in the vein, yes.
So, is there a procedure to put the dog just in sleeping purposes so he doesn't feel? I mean, how do you get
You
that?
mean
in?
sedate them before?
Yeah.
They're tranquilized.
Tranquilizer, and then she does the
And that's always
Specifically,
done,
if it's an
right?
aggressive
That is-
dog,
That is always done.
And that's just given in the muscle, right?
that's it.
Right.
And it's recorded on each of the impoundment cards, the amount of drugs that she used and the procedure, as well as it's in our computer.
You don't have any memory of any of those steps being bypassed or anything?
And I say no because it has to be signed off by Dr. Hall, and he's not gonna play with his license.
Okay.
What happens to them afterwards?
They are.
Is it, you know, we hear these stories, is it true they're put in a trash bag and thrown into the landfill like
No,
an
no.
old salad?
Well, let me first say that when an animal is put down, they are placed in a bag and they are placed in a freezer, because we only go to the landfill once a day. EPD requires us to open a separate hole for all animals, whether they be euthanized animals, the animal that was hit by a car, whether it was a dog, whether it was a deer, whether it was a horse. Because we have rural people around here that have cattle and horse that died, that we have to also be able to bury. So all of the animals go into one hole at the landfill that has to be covered every evening.
Columbus picks up dead horses?
Yes, we do. At a
No,
rate-
no one else does.
Yeah, at a rate of
Harris County
75.
doesn't.
We can't just leave them out there. So we do for a fee. There's a fee imposed, and that fee starts from the minute we give the call to send that equipment, because it's heavy equipment, to pick up that horse and
Oh, yeah.
haul it.
Cause I know Alabama doesn't do it, people always dumping their dead horses in the woods. you
That's
know?
what we don't want to do.
They do.
That's what we don't
Is
want to
there-
have happen.
Is there any type of inventory to say dog 74532, run 33 was euthanized? Person with the truck gets it, signs off that he got it, gets to the landfill, they sign off that the dog was disposed of at the landfill? So there's, once
The
it's,
impoundment card shows disposition of every
so
animal.
once it's dead, it's not accounted for anymore?
Other than the impoundment card.
Hmm.
Now, if there is an owner that comes forward, we let the owner know exactly what has happened. If they didn't come
for the time. You snooze, you lose.
Well, not necessarily snooze, you lose, I mean, we keep it for as long as we can, but let's just say an owner's looking for an animal that was hit by a car. And we, you know, we do an impoundment card, even on an 8620, to give a description, especially if it's a domestic animal, so that if someone does call looking for a black and white Great Dane, for an example, we can tell them that one was found in this area and it was deceased.
And it works. I had a family member that lost, a mastiff, and I let animal control know, and then Sarah called me the next day and said that it was picked up dead
And if it has a collar,
in that area.
if it has a collar, we take the we remove the collar and we notify them. And some will come and get the collar and some will say, just let it go.
Collar chip.
Or chip, that's true.
Shan?
Yes,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. That was all I had. I just wanted that answered there. That's it.
Well, I move to adjourn.
Second.